Hello, everybody, and welcome to our geography lesson today. My name is Mr. Antal, and we've been learning all about the geography of Brazil in this unit. Now, in our previous lesson, we had a look at some of the most famous cities in Brazil. And today, we're going to focus on one of those cities and what it might be like to live there for different people living in the city. So while Mr. Antal is sharing the screen, what city do you think it could be? Can you remember any of the cities so far that we've been learning about in Brazil? So you may have seen it already. We're going to be looking at the city of Rio de Janeiro and how do experiences within Rio differ. So this is lesson 4 in this unit. So just a quick recap on Rio. We've looked at the famous Copacabana beach and the famous Sugarloaf Mountain too in our previous lesson. So today we're going to be thinking about experiences that might also be different. So let's get started. So in our lesson today, we're going to recap the 7 continents of the world. You guys are getting really good at this now. And we're going to locate Brazil and the city of Rio de Janeiro. Then we're going to do a bit of a case study on Rio. And that means we're going to look closely at the city and what it's like for the people that live there. And then lastly, we're going to think about how different it is for different people to have different experiences in the city. So why are they different and how are they different? And often this is just due to the money that they might have. So people who have more money might have a slightly different living experience from the people that have less money. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Now, before we begin our lesson, you're going to need these things. You're going to need some paper or your workbook. You're going to need a pencil. And you're going to need your magical geography brain, which I know you all have, and you've been proving it so far. So we can pause the video now, and you can go and get everything that you need. Okay, we're ready to begin. So my first challenge for you today is all about those 7 continents. But it's going to be a little bit trickier for you today because you're getting so good. So rather than showing you the whole map, I'm going to show you each continent based on its shape. So see if you can name them based on their shape. So you're going to pause the video for each one and say or write down the names of the continents that you can see. So the first 2 are as follows. So we've got A and B. A over on the left-hand side here and B. So pause the video and can you write down or say the name of these 2 continents? Okay, let's have a look, see if you got those ones correct. First one is, of course, South America, and that's the continent that we've been looking at in this unit because that's where Brazil is located. So well done if you got that one. Could you recognize continent B? It was Africa. Well done if you got that one correct. Okay, I've got another 2 continents for you now. Have a look at continent C and continent D. Pause the video and say or write down the name of each continent. Okay, let's see if you managed to identify these ones correctly. So continent C was Asia. Well done if you got that one. And continent D is Australia, also known as Australasia or Oceania. Well done if you got that one. Okay, so we've covered 4 of our continents. So we've got 3 left to identify. So let's have a look at the next 2. Which are these continents? So pause the video now and have a go at either saying or writing the name of each one. let's have a look. So continent E was North America. Well done if you got North America. And continent F. Now, this is quite a tricky one, I think, because it's at the very south of our planet, but often it looks very different on a map. So this one is Antarctica. Well done, especially well done if you got that one correct, because that one was tricky. So that just leaves one continent left. I wonder if you can guess which one that is, or if you already know which one it is. Okay, let's have a look at this one here. So pause the video and say it or write down the name of this continent. Okay, let's see if we got this last one, and it was Europe. Congratulations if you got that one right. Well done, guys. You're getting very good at these continents now, so give yourself a big pat on your back already. Fantastic work. Now, you might remember that Europe is the continent where we live here in the UK, but we're not looking at Europe today. We're going back over to South America, because in South America is where Brazil is located. Now, I wonder if you can remember any other of those South American countries. So we had a go at this in our last lesson, at saying or writing down as many as you can remember. I want you to see how many you can remember and say or write down this week, please. See if you can get more than you did last time. Okay, have a go. Pause your screen. Okay, let's see how many you've managed to remember this time round. Did you beat your score from last time? So here they are, here are those countries. So starting down at the bottom with Argentina and Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, French Guiana, remember that's a territory of France, Suriname, Guyana, and then across to Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and the final one there is Chile. So well done if you got some of those. Fantastic work. Okay, so we're now going to focus in on the country, Brazil, that we've been looking at so far this topic. And we're going to look at a particular city in Brazil. And that city is Rio de Janeiro. So it's one of Brazil's most famous cities, as we know. So let's just have a quick recap on what we know about Rio. So we know that it's a very, very large city with over 13 million people living there. That's a big number of people. Like any city around the world, the experiences of people living in Rio are very different. Now, we know that in recent years, lots of people have moved to Rio to find work. So lots of people have moved from maybe rural areas in the countryside of Brazil to big cities like Rio de Janeiro just to find jobs and to find work. And that means that the population of the city is always growing. So there are more people living there each year. But this can become a slight problem because there are not always enough houses for people to live in. So lots of people are coming to the city to find jobs and to find work, but there aren't always enough houses for people to live in. Now, the city itself can't really grow or get bigger because of its physical geography. So there are mountains to the north of the city, and there's sea to the south and to the east. So the city can't get any bigger because it's blocked out on one side by the mountains and on the other side by the sea. Now, sadly, this can cause quite a lot of poverty. Poverty means when people don't have enough money or don't have the resources to buy things that they need, like food or medical care or things like that. So the residents of Rio de Janeiro have very different experiences based on how much money they have. So if we look at one particular area of Rio, this is the central business district. And some people that live here have higher paid jobs. That means they earn more money for the jobs they do. And they might live in high-class residential areas, such as the ones you can see in the pictures. They're often found near the beaches, like Copacabana Beach. Now, apartments in this area of the city are very expensive, and lots of people who live there are wealthy business workers that work in the business district of the city. Many of these high-rise apartments, that means skyscrapers, the really tall buildings, have 24-hour security and armed guards on them. And that's because the people that live there are fearful and worried about the risk of violence and theft due to the high levels of unemployment and poverty in the city. So if you live in this area around the central business district and the Copacabana Beach, then you might live in a tall skyscraper in quite a wealthy and quite fancy flat or house like the ones you can see in the pictures here. However, not everybody can afford to live in a place like this. I sound like someone from a famous TV program. So, many people that don't have well-paid jobs can't afford to live in those skyscrapers or in those kind of high-rise fancy apartments. So many people arriving in the city of Rio to look for work can't find housing to live in because there are more people than there are housing. So they often live in areas called favelas. Now, favelas are found on the edge of the city of Rio de Janeiro, close to the industry where lots of people look for work when they arrive. And many are located in the steep hills around the city. So if you have a look at the pictures on the screen, you can see that there are lots of houses and buildings are built on a slope. So on the steep hills surrounding the city, because this might be the only land that's available for people to build on when they arrive. Now, many of the favelas began as camps where people built houses out of the materials that they could find. So they might always not be built out of bricks or out of materials that we might build our houses out of in here in the UK. And lots of these places, especially when they started popping up, lots of the favelas and these communities didn't always have things like electricity or running water. So definitely very, very different to the central business district that we looked at before. Now, some favelas do now have these things. Some of them have running water and electricity, and people do different jobs. However, some people are still struggling to access things like school and education, or healthcare and doctors and hospitals and things like that. And this is different to the people living in the richer part of the city, because there are lots of schools and hospitals and medicines available in those more fancy and more wealthy parts of the city. Some people that live in the favelas struggle to find jobs that pay well. And so some people live on as little as £1 a day for their salary, which is not very much money if we think about it here in the UK. So the experiences of people living in the different parts of the city might be different. Now we're going to think about those differences. So I'm going to show you some statements in a moment, and I want you to tell me if they describe life in the business district or in the favelas. So on your paper in front of you, I want you to draw a line right down the middle so that you have two columns. One is going to be with the title Life in the Business District, and another one is going to be Life in the Favelas. So pause the video now and draw out those two columns with those two different titles. Okay, now you've got your columns drawn in your book. I want you to look at the statements on the screen. I want you to think about whether they describe life in the business district of the city or life in the favelas. So I'm going to read the statements out to you. Have a think about which part of Rio de Janeiro these apply to. So number one, there are tall skyscrapers here. Number two, there is not much public transport here. Number three, some people do not have access to healthcare. Number four, many houses and flats have security. Number five, people often have higher paying jobs. And number six, people often have lower paying jobs. So I'd like you to pause the video in a moment, have a look at these statements and write them in the correct column. So are they more likely to be in the central business district of the city, or are they more likely to be in the favelas, the poor areas? Read the sentences and write them in the correct column. Most of you will be able to write them, but if this is tricky, you can put the number in the correct column and discuss your answers with an adult. Okay, pause the video and have a go. Okay, hopefully you've got those sentences written down in each column. Let's see where you put them, and I'll show you where I would have put each of those statements myself. So statement number 1 was that there are tall skyscrapers here. Now you would find those in the business district, so I put it in that column. Give yourself a tick if you got that in the right place. The second statement was that there's not much public transport here, and that would be more likely in the favelas. Give yourself a tick if you got that one, well done. Our third statement was that some people struggle to access healthcare, and that would go, yeah, in the favelas section. Well done if you got that one. So some people live in the favelas, not everybody, but some people struggle to access healthcare like doctors and hospitals. Now, statement number 4 was that some apartments have security, and that would go in the business district section. So many houses and flats have security or armed guards. Then we're thinking about statement number 5, which is people often have higher paying jobs, and that would go in the business district. And our final statement, people often have lower paying jobs, and that would probably go in the favelas section. So life in the favelas. Now it's important to remember that not everyone in the business district has a high paying job and lives in a fancy flat. And not everybody in the favelas doesn't go to school or doesn't have access to healthcare. Even within those parts of the cities, the experiences can be very, very different. But these are just some of the features of those different parts of Rio de Janeiro. Now, my final challenge for you today, guys, is to see if you can finish these sentences. So if you lived in Rio de Janeiro, how might your life be different depending on which part of the city you lived in? So I've got some sentence starters. I want you to have a go at finishing these sentences either by saying them or by writing them down. So in Rio de Janeiro, there is not enough housing for all the residents because, so have a think. Why are there not enough houses in the city for all the people? Okay, next one. Some people in richer areas live in, and I want you to describe maybe some of the houses or apartments that we've seen. And some people in the poorer areas live in, and I want you to describe those communities. So you're going to pause the video now and see if you can finish off these sentences. Okay, well done everybody, and well done for writing down or saying your sentences. Hopefully you've got them ready. I'm going to show you my answers, see if you would have come up with some similar things. So these were how I finished the sentences. In Rio de Janeiro, there's not enough housing for all of the residents because more people are coming to the city to find work, and there are not always enough houses for people to live in. Some people in richer areas live in tall apartment buildings with strict security. Some people in poor areas live in favelas on the hillsides on the edge of the city. So that was how I finished my answers. Right, you've done amazing work today. You're amazing geographers, and thank you for all of your hard work today. So please send in any pictures of the work that you've done to your teachers so we can see how well you've been doing. Well done again for all your hard work today, and I can't wait to continue our learning with you about Brazil next time. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.